Hello everyone and welcome to the Council of Elrond, where we discuss all things Lord of the Rings. I'm your host Dave and I'm joined by your other host Johnny, but today we have yet another special guest who's going to help us break down the 5th episode of The Rings of Power. It's amazing that we're already here. We're more than halfway through the show, you guys, so we would like to give a warm welcome to Chase Mullins, who is an aspiring actor and Tolkien fanatic, who we both had the pleasure of meeting at the London premiere event. So Chase, welcome to the council. Would you like to introduce yourself and tell our listeners where they can find you?
Oh yeah, thank you guys for having me. This is awesome. It's been a while since London, so it's cool to be here together. You can find me on television. If you're in America, I'm in a terrible Lifetime movie that you can watch right now. But also, if you're a big fan of Liam Neeson movies, The Marksman, check it out.
Ooh.
And on Instagram, Chase MM18. I think it's the same for all my social media. I'm only on Twitter to essentially follow you guys and like your posts. I don't really ever post anything on there, but if you want to see the things I like,
for that.
yeah, no, I appreciate it. I just got the PayPal.
The check, yeah, sweet. Yeah, great. Of course, we'll put all your links in the podcast info section below this podcast. And yes, we will be discussing the 5th episode of The Rings of Power, which is titled Partings. But before we begin, I'd love to encourage all you guys to check us out on YouTube. And if you'd like to help us keep putting out these weekly podcasts, you can check out our Patreon page as well, where you can become a member. And we're actually currently reviewing all the episodes of House of the Dragon over there each week. And the new episode just went up this morning, so be sure to catch it. The links to all of our socials are in the podcast info section as well. So, without further ado, let's get into it.
You have not seen what I have seen.
So, Chase, I explained to you off air that, well, I don't know, did I explain to this? Maybe I explained it to Johnny off air, that we're going to break this down rather than scene by scene. We're going to do it kind of like location by location.
Oh, okay, cool. Yeah, no, we didn't talk about that, but this is cool.
Yeah, it kind of makes it easier. I think it's going to move things along a bit quicker. So we'll start with the most interesting thing, of course, which is the Harfoots. Oh, no, I'm only joking. I don't know if they're very interesting. But Chase, I'd like to ask you, how did you enjoy the opening to this episode? We see the stranger learning to speak with an Irish accent, and then we get the song travel montage. So what are your thoughts?
I really liked it. Now, having said that, I'm a big fan of the Harfoot storyline. I think, especially after when we were in London and saw the first 2 episodes, that was probably the one part of the show that I left being like, I have no worries about that. That's obviously in very good hands. They're doing the right thing there. I'm getting the right feeling from them. And I'm excited that this episode actually got a little more into the stranger. We're seeing more of what it actually is like when they travel. I was like, is it as cutthroat? Is there people just like, running and trying to get, while someone gets left behind? But it was, I really enjoyed it. I liked seeing him speaking because I'm like, all right, cool. We're moving along with him. And I thought that montage, and I'm a softie, I don't know what it is, but those shots of New Zealand and that song, I got all choked up because it took me right back to being in New Zealand. I was like literally seeing some of those landscapes. I was like, I've been there, and it was beautiful.
Yeah, beautiful. Johnny, what you make? Did you actually happen to catch that? It was like an old carriage or an old caravan stuck in a bog.
Stuck in the swamp. Which is a little funny because it's like, guys, if we see a carriage in the swamp, maybe we go around or use a different. It's like, no, my carriage will make it. It's like me playing Oregon Trail. It's just, always trying to do the wrong thing.
Yeah, it didn't look like these marshes were as vast as the dead marshes that we see in Lord of the Rings. It looked like it was just the size of a swimming pool that they could have just been like, let's walk around, and they were just so lazy. Like, we're not turning. We're going straight forward, straight through it. So, but to give you my views on this opening scene, I also liked it. I have to say I got a bit, well, I wouldn't say I got sick of it, but I wasn't a huge fan of the Harfoots in the previous, the previous time we saw them, that was in episode 3, I suppose. And I thought that was kind of a little bit of it kind of slowed down the pace of the episode, but I have to say that in this episode, similar to you, Chase, I think I wouldn't say it got choked up, but I definitely, when that music was coming in, I've heard that song a few times, or quite a few
Same
times
here.
from the thing, and I didn't really know how I felt about it, because I thought, okay, it's a really lovely, beautiful song. I didn't know how I felt about the lyrics of, not all those who wander are lost being used in this type of song. And there was a couple of, I had a couple of things as well with saying the lines like, my legs are so short and the way is so long. I was thinking, like, do Harfoots consider themselves to have short legs, or is that the consideration that we have about Harfoots? Like, would they think that about themselves?
Interesting.
Little things like that I wasn't sure about. But in the moment when I saw it in the show with all the scenery, I definitely kind of got the hair standing on the back of my neck kind of feeling. And there were some really fantastic shots. Those kind of just panoramic views, just landscape sweeping shots. There was one where just as soon as Poppy starts singing the song, the camera just zooms out, and you get this glorious
beautiful.
backdrop. It's incredible. It's really, really good. And I think that little montage was really sweet when we saw them all kind of hiding in their caravan when there was a storm, and what's his name? The Daddy Harfoot. Largo. Largo. He was like telling a story, and the kids were like big wide-eyed children staring at him, and the stranger was sitting in the back like the cheers in his little cup, whatever they gave him, and it felt really like, oh, now he's one of the family, and it did feel really nice. It felt really nice. And then there was that really cool shot as well of the stranger standing out staring up at the stars, and that was
under the moon,
the giant moon. Yeah, that was beautiful as well. So
that was beautiful. Yeah, we are getting that kind of vibe of the gentle giant being accepted into the family. And by the way, listeners, forgive us. I think we called Largo Lando in our previous podcast, or like we didn't know his name. We knew
he was like, "Hey, buddy, don't let me down."
We were just thinking about Star Wars.
Exactly. Yes.
Yeah. But I have to say the music, I thought it was quite funny actually, how Poppy was singing the song, and she was like out of breath at the start of the song, because she's pulling the cart, and she's like, come to me.
Is she pulling though?
Come to me. Well, yeah, I don't know, maybe
there's been a lot of speculation about whether or not she pulls carts.
Oh, really?
Why? I haven't heard that.
The second episode she's in, when they're trying to pull the cart and they get in that huge argument where she's like, "Are you pushing up?" "Yes, I'm pushing."
Oh, that's
like Sauron. That's Sauron energy right there.
Yeah, but
she's the other blue wizard.
Yeah,
maybe Poppy Blue Wizard.
Before we move on from the Harfoots, I really liked as well just the actual before the montage and before the music. I liked the scene where Nori was sitting down with a stranger and she was chatting away, and he clearly just didn't know anything that he couldn't understand anything. But then every now and again she was like, "So we summer in wherever, and then in the winter we go and we get snails." He's like, "Ooh, snails!"
Right, of course. He's like eating a snail. He's like, "Of course." Like, who doesn't?
He was just like Nookie. He was like, "Oh, snails!" Like I don't know, just the expression that he had on his face. It really made me like chuckle, and I thought it was really
cute.
Cool. There's a couple of little things. And then at the end, of course, the whole thing of her saying the word like peril, and he's like, "Peril, what's that?" And also, if you don't speak another language and someone's just rambling on for ages, you don't pick out the individual words. So when he was like, "You said the word peril there. What does that mean?" And then later on, he does the exact same thing with the word kill. He's like, "Kill?" And she's like, "Yeah, it's when you make something dead." And he's like, "Peril?" She's like, "Yeah, it means danger." And so but I feel like but I enjoyed it, and also I liked the way that he turned around and he said, "Oh, I'm peril," and she was like, "No, you're good," and he's like, "I'm good," and it's like it's still like this is the whole big question, and it's cool that they're kind of just playing with it that way, and they're toying with this.
They are playing with it, but at the same time, I think they're trying to get the viewers to understand that Nori just rambles on, talks shite all the time to the stranger, but this is the first time she's ever used the word peril. He's becoming used to hearing the same words over and over again, but he's never heard peril, he's never heard kill.
Also, I like the idea that maybe he does speak the common tongue, but is forgotten, and then as she's going through, and he's like getting triggered. So that could also be part of it.
Sure.
Or maybe she really is just teaching this man to speak like an infant for the first time.
That could be it.
Maybe. Yeah.
He is a big baby after all, but we do see him. We do see him become the hero when we get the stranger versus the wolves scene. So, Chase, what did you like about this, or did you like this scene?
I love this show when you think you're like, all right, wolves. I have a mental image of a wolf in my head, and then the thing that shows up on screen, you're like, that looks like a donkey got it on with a wolf, and then had a very rough childhood. Yeah, and a wild boar. So I thought that with the design of the wolf, I thought was, I'm like, these things are terrifying. They look nuts. But I loved getting to see him use some of these abilities that he has, because I think they're clues as to who or what he is. Um, and obviously the gnarly, markings of like that veiny kind of thing on his arm afterwards. It almost looked like his arm was like frostbitten or just decaying, which was pretty wild. But I loved that the other Harfoots finally get to see that, he tried to help them. Look at that. He helped them, because them constantly just be like, oh, he's an outsider, he's bad luck, everything about him is bad luck. I'm like, okay, just pump the brakes, guys. Let's see what happens. As of right now, he's just helping and pushing carts. So it was cool to see that. I firmly am in the camp that he is not one of the wizards and is in fact going to be something bad.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
I'm
so this
firmly
reinforced that when I
hoping
saw
that
this.
he. Yeah, I'm hoping that he's Blue Wizard. Both myself and Johnny are. Johnny, what did you make of the scene? Also, I wanted to ask you Marva. She seems to be pure cutthroat. She's not just like leave them behind. She's
What
like,
a bitch.
take
their
off
wheels.
those wheels
I
and
know.
like
Yeah.
kill them.
She's like, sweep the leg.
Yeah, but take their wheels. It's not like then they're just stuck there. Yeah, I mean, if they were decaravaned, I thought it was like, okay, you can't come with us. You have to go off and try and survive on your own. You're excommunicated. But take their wheels, so they just have to basically sit there and be out in the open elements, and basically, yeah, that's a death sentence. So yeah, I don't know. She's a bit of a wagon, that one herself.
Yeah.
bit of a cart.
Use a pun. Yeah, we don't have the expression to say that she's a cart, but she's a bit of a cart, that one.
Yeah, cart.
But yeah, there was another thing as well that I thought was cool. Just actually right before they spot the marks, the prints,
tracks.
which was again with the stranger learning to speak. And I thought this was really cool, because this is something that you see with children very often. When children are learning to speak, they'll repeat the last couple of words. If you could say a full sentence, and they'll just repeat like the last part that they heard. They just repeat it with no context. And someone said, we need to get through this forest quickly because it won't be easier in the dark. And he just said, easier in the dark. So they said
That's
won't be easier in the dark. And he just said, easier in the dark. So I was like,
I am sorry.
that's like such a cool little hint as well. And again, yeah, I can see, I'm still holding out hope that he's a Blue Wizard. And but it's just like every time you see him, they're like, look, this guy's going to be evil. That's obviously what they're kind of pushing. But again, is that to try and throw us off the trail? Is it going to be a Blue Wizard that turns bad? Because that's a possibility.
It also feels like they go back and forth, because I think the previous episode he seemed so good, like tragically sad. He like bumbles in and gets stuck in the freaking tent and all that stuff, and everyone's sort of like, oh, get rid of him, and then he helps push the cart, and you're like, oh, he's such a sweetie. He's got to be a good guy. But for me, I'm going off the theory that in the same way that Howard Shore's music influenced so much of what was happening on screen, that Bear's score are clues. Having said that, it could also be misdirection.
Sure.
But his music, even when it's sweet, is kind of eerie and kind of off. And I don't know if we talked about this in London, what I've dubbed my Iron Giant theory. Have you guys seen this movie, The Iron Giant?
I've seen the movie, yeah.
Okay, so the whole thing is, I think this stranger is our Iron Giant. He's someone who crashes in, meets young kid. He doesn't remember anything, and things are great. They're having a great time, and then he remembers what he's supposed to do, and that thing is quite terrible. Now, while I think that part I'm almost 100% certain is going to happen, the question is, in the Iron Giant, he eventually makes the choice to be good and sacrifices himself. Maybe this show does something different. So I don't know what the outcome's going to be, whether or not when he realizes what he is, will he stay on the side of bad, or will he try to change that and overcome that and be good and protect the Harfoots or whoever he's involved with at the time. But I think that's where I'm at with him.
Yeah, well, the interesting thing is, if he does turn out to be a Blue Wizard, the show can play two different ways. They could go for the Blue Wizards that, helped out, or they could be the ones that just became conjurers. Cult leaders in the East. So he could still be a bad guy and be a Blue Wizard, and that would be fine. So,
totally.
And not break the canon, which I think is cool. But harken back to what Johnny said there about easier in the dark. That is something in Star Wars that they would talk about. It's easier to be a Sith and it's easier to be evil, and that would be kind of interesting there. But Johnny, just this next scene where we see the stranger actually trying to heal his hand in the water and then it freezing. What do you think's going on there? What kind of hints are the show kind of trying to drop to us in this scene?
I've absolutely no idea. I'll come back to that in a second, but I just wanted to jump in on what Chase said there about the music and how Howard Shore's music, it always told the exact same. It was like a reflection of the story at the same time. And I just the night before last went back and watched The Two Towers because it was time. It's been a good couple of weeks since I watched it. So and again, like every time I watch it, I mean, my girlfriend has to watch it as well, of course. But while we're watching it, I'm just like nudging her every like couple of minutes, being like, "Wait, listen to the music. Just listen." Did you catch that? And it's like I'm like so obsessed with the music and the way it works as well. So I completely agree that is like such an important part of the whole story of Middle Earth. The music needs to be right. And if you've been listening to Dave and myself for a while, you'll know that for us, the music being right was such an important part of how we were going to feel overall about the show. And I think both of us could say that we're very happy with the way things are going so far. And yes, there's been a lot of those little hints as well with the way the music weaves in and out because also it seems to me like the stranger, he does a lot of good acts, like you said, Chase, that like, you know, he pops up and he's kind of sort of bumbling, silly giant, and then he helps out. You're like, oh, he's so sweet. But it's kind of like in some weird moments, his true nature comes through. Like when Poppy was running towards him the first time he saw her, and he kind of started to tried to attack her until Nori jumped in and was like, "No, that's a friend." And I don't know, just a couple of times that it seems like he gives these weird looks, and it's like he looks like, oh, this guy is evil inside. But I mean, I don't know. We're gonna have to see what happens, and if it turns out to all be a big misdirect, I'll be very happy. But we'll
nothing is evil in the beginning, remember? So maybe he's good until something. Well, we obviously know. I don't know if I'm jumping ahead, but some people are looking for him.
Yeah, well, well, Johnny, would you like to answer my first question first?
Sorry. So you're talking about the hand freezing.
The hand freezing. Kind of By the way, before you get into it, I just had to say that scene where the hand is freezing and then Nori's like, oh no, please let go, stop it or whatever. And then you see kind of the eye symbolism and you see, you know, him in the fire. And then suddenly she goes flying back. And I could have sworn I heard the same sound effects as in Lord of the Rings when, you know, when Theoden's exorcism is happening and Saruman gets casted back and you just hear like, Chaw! It just felt like the same thing.
It sounded like that. It also reminded me of every time Frodo put the ring on and was trying to yank it off, and you'd hear that voice, that same voice, like for a split second, made me think of that. And so I loved that moment. I was like, oh, damn. I was like, because that last episode made me think, I'm like, maybe he's good. Maybe I'm totally wrong. And then I saw this, and I'm like, nah. Shady.
Yeah, no. We got him now.
Right, so to the frozen hand, you don't know?
Again, I just finished watching the episode like just before we started recording this, so I haven't had time to let any of the information really sink in. I haven't had time to sit down and muse on each different thing. And that scene, I'm only just trying to remember it now. I didn't give too much importance to it at the time. I was just like, this is some weird thing. Obviously, we've seen the whole thing about fire and the fire that doesn't give off any warmth. And then the ice. And so I don't know, there's definitely probably something at play here that if I sit down and think about it, I might be able to try and find some connection. But off the top of my head now, I can't really think of anything. I'm more interested to hear your guys' thoughts on this.
Well, ice being a thing of, because we always associate, I think, Sauron with, Mount Doom and fire and all that stuff. But Morgoth's, most of his strongholds were in cold places. And so I like the idea of his power being, driven from like cold and ice and things like that. So when he's healing himself in there, I had two feelings. One, he was either like, oh, this is Morgoth power here, this is dark stuff, or is it just simply he doesn't know how to, kind of like the superhero stuff where they've got to go through the montage of screwing up and not knowing how to use their powers, of where he's just like, look, I meant to make my arm a little cold.
Smallville season 1.
And then instead, instead he just freezes his whole arm and doesn't know how to control it, and that's what it was. But it did seem to me a bit sinister because she's chanting something over there to make that happen. And
did anybody think we were going to get a Terminator 2? Like suddenly something falls and lands and like his arm just shatters along with Nori's arm as well, and they both just only have one arm from now on. I was like, that'd be cool. But
that'd be wild. Like how Nori lost her hand.
Yeah,
that would be cool. But
what
yeah,
do you think about it, Dave?
I don't know, actually. That just when Chase was talking about Morgoth there, and even thinking of the scenes from episode
Autumnal.
1 of well, yeah, it's not in Autumnal, but wherever Galadriel is, and she's pouring the water on the on the little sigil thing, and we see the ice. I don't know, I'm getting kind of flashbacks to that,
Autumnal,
but
right?
no, that they already named.
Oh yeah,
it.
I mean, but like they gave us some new name,
Shortland.
but it's Autumnal.
For all intents and purposes, it's our because I don't think
Yeah.
they could use that word or
No,
that name.
yeah, I don't think so. So,
But yeah, we talked about this on a previous episode. Like they could have just not named it, and we just assume it's Autumnal. But I think they've actually given it a new name. But
oh, right, okay.
but yeah, I don't know. I think Chase, you were about to talk about the crash site Morgoth worshippers, the M&Ms that we get to see. So, what are your thoughts on these folks? What are they?
Well, they're
up to?
slim and they're shady, guys. That's
is
two
true,
things I took away from it. But no, it was cool. I'm glad we finally got to see them because that's been one of those things of when and how are they going to show up, the mystics, and I loved it. I thought that was really interesting, and I loved that it without any dialogue, you knew exactly what they were there for. They're looking for the stranger. And we know that based on that music and based on those haircuts, that they are not there to welcome him or maybe they are, but they're not friends. Let's put it that way. They won't be invited to Bilbo's party.
No, well, they're not friends of us, anyways. But what I don't understand is exactly: do we think that they're just looking for the stranger because it's an omen for Sauron? Are they looking for Sauron and think the stranger is Sauron? Do they just want to like follow these clues? Are they just Morgoth worshippers that are trying to follow the stars and the signs? It's hard to know exactly what their motives are, and of course, we've gotten no dialogue, just stares.
Yeah. So I mean, I've got deep theories on this, but I feel like the hilt, the stranger, and some other things are a key. That these things all need to come together to cause something to happen. Those mystics seem like they knew it. It wasn't just like, oh, we found this crash site. It was, we're looking for this. We saw the signs. This is the thing. Now, whether or not they are thinking he's Sauron or if he is Sauron, it does seem to me like they know what he is, and they know what more than what we do or even the stranger knows. So that's why I'm excited to see more of them, because I'm like, okay, these guys gave us clues as to who the stranger is.
Yeah, Johnny, do you have any idea on who they could be or what their motives are?
Not really. I mean, obviously they're just people who saw the star fall and they've gone to check it out and they're like, this must be a sign. Yeah, so clearly they're waiting for a sign from their dark lord or something to come back. And honestly, I had a sense of relief that thankfully we're finally starting to see the last remnants of the things that we've seen in the trailers. There's still a couple of things, and it's kind of, I'm getting a little bit annoyed at this stage that there's still things that we haven't seen after 5 episodes of an 8-episode series. Like for example, when the Southlanders were in that area, that little tower, and they were like, oh, when they come here, the tower is going to collapse. And then they look up and they all look at the tower and they're just like, oh, I wonder what's going to happen. We're like, well, we saw it in the trailer, so that's annoying. And you're kind of going, this is teaser territory where it's like, we're the suspense that we're supposed to feel isn't there because you've ruined it by showing us stuff from episode 6, 7, or 8. I don't know, it's one of those in the trailer. And it's just, it's kind of annoying at this stage. I was really hoping that from the first 1-2 episodes, we'd see everything from the trailers. Maybe minus the Balrog, unless that was a throwback. But I don't know. That's for me. That's one of the things I'm just like, I don't know. It's also something that takes me out of an episode when I'm really like locked in, and suddenly I see something. I'm like, oh, I saw this from the trailer, and I don't see the point of it if you're like from the marketing strategy. I just think that's an oversight on their part. I think it's just not really a good way of doing things. So, sorry, little rant there on
No.
frustrations.
Yeah,
rants here.
I was going to bring that up actually later on in the episode. Just annoyances like that. I was hoping that that's how they were going to finish this episode, because I was like, that's probably one of the last big things, apart from Galadriel's charge. But I was like, that's probably one of the last big things that I know definitely happens, and I know where it happens and how it happens. So that was disappointing.
I think, I am just to bring you up to speed, Chase. In a previous episode, also, I was kind of saying it's annoying that the scene where the orcs killed that elf with that whole bottle standoff. That was such an amazing scene. And then it gets to a point where you're thinking, oh my God, Arondir, this main character, could die at any point.
Right.
And you're kind of going, but I know he won't, because I saw him in the trailer. And it's just like those kind of things, they just take the tension out of that entire, I don't know, it ruins that moment, I think, a little bit. It doesn't ruin it, but it definitely, the stakes are not as high. You're like, well, I know he's going to survive. And so that kind of thing can be a bit annoying as well.
It is one of those things, like, I guess, speaking from like a film background, like, you know, if you think about the discourse online with this show in the beginning, it was like, stop showing us the same stuff over and over again. I want to see more. I want to see more. And now we've seen more, and we see what the fallout is of that, which is that And the same way when you're watching like I'm a huge Batman fan. I remember they released those Batman trailers for like the Nolan films. And I always wanted just less, because what would happen is you'd see some cool moment in the trailer, and then you're just counting time in the movie until that moment happens. Yeah. And so if you're wondering where you're at in the story, you just go, oh, well, we haven't seen that scene with the Batpod yet, so we're good. Something's going to happen here. Yeah. And so, you're right. It totally ruins it. Now, having said that, you then have the flip side, which is sometimes those scenes are what get people to watch the show. And so it's like, you know, how do you find that happy middle ground of, I need to get people excited about watching this show and give them little hints about like, hey, you know, you have fears and doubts about what we're going to include and what we're not going to include. Pardon me. And then you show them some stuff and they go, oh, great. Well, they're going to show a Balrog, or there's going to be this. Yeah. But then you ruin it by, in some ways, you know, that setup. And so it's tricky. I agree with you, though. It does pull some of that tension out. Now, having said that, the mark of really good writing and storytelling is that if it's good, you'll get so invested in what's going on in that moment, you'll forget about what you saw. And that's happened to me a few times in the show. But yes, that brain of mine will kick in and go, no, we haven't seen Arondir do that bit where he kicks the thing off this and jumps down and does some awesome stuff. So we know that he's going to make it out of this.
I think we mentioned that before. And Dave, I think you and I are a little bit different in that you can kind of switch off your brain in those moments and you can enjoy the episode. And then afterwards kind of go, oh yeah. But for me, I can't really switch it off. This is like one of the reasons for the last few years, I've kind of just stopped watching all trailers and teasers and anything before I go and watch something that I really want to enjoy. The only problem is that I really want to enjoy the series, but I also have to analyze it and break it down for the podcast. So I have to go and watch these trailers and not just like watch them, but break them down in like extreme details. So and then I don't know. I think the trailers.
I was just going to say, I think that's another thing. Like the fact that we're actually overly analyzing these things. If I was just watching this as some, you know, random person that didn't know anything about Tolkien, or, you know, didn't know the new names of every new character, we know that Arondir is that guy, that elf that kicks, you know, this place or whatever. Like, we know every little bit. Whereas if you're just watching this trailer as a normal person, everything kind of goes over your head, and you only watch the trailer once, maybe twice, and you just kind of forget all those things. And I don't know, whenever I'm watching a trailer for a new show and I know nothing about the show, I will forget all those scenes by the time I'm watching the show, and maybe remember as it's happening. But like, we have analyzed it to death. But also, this is something I was thinking about, and hopefully this is just a ploy for season 1 to, you know, show so much. I'm just thinking about, I remember Game of Thrones season 8, the trailer that they showed was, the first one was a teaser, and like none of that video footage was actually in the show at all. I think it just,
which is great.
Showed,
I love when shows do that.
Yeah, it just showed
so
like
clever.
it just showed someone with like a torch going down to a tomb, and I don't know, a bunch of people's faces, but it didn't show any like footage. And then I think the next big trailer was just a bunch of people again at a funeral, and it didn't show, there was no context, and I think that all happened in like one episode, and it was just great that you didn't know anything. And hopefully season 2 they already have the crowd and they don't need to pull in new mainstream audience.
I agree.
But I think we should get this train moving. So let's get on to Numenor. So we get to see Elendil and Isildur chat about Isildur wanting to bring honor to Numenor before sailing west. So it's great to see these characters back again in this episode. Chase, what did you make of Elendil and Isildur in this episode?
I love them. I honestly it's funny because I had been told previously before we had gotten to Numenor in the show to lower my expectations for Numenor, and I was so bummed when I heard that, and then I saw episode 3 and I was like, totally, this is wrong. This is great. I love the stuff in Numenor, and I love the two of them because that's a tough dynamic, man. Isildur could easily come off as whiny and annoying, in the same way that people feel about, or felt about like Luke Skywalker in the first, Star Wars movie. They're like, oh, he's just constantly complaining about the power converters. And whereas
I just want to go to Tashi Station.
Yeah, and look, I get it, man. We all want to go to Tashi Station, but you gotta do your chores. Get those droids cleaned up. Anyway, that's a different show.
Get the moisture farmer. Yeah.
So seeing them together, I think they totally walk that tightrope perfectly of making him sort of like, he's a young, hot-headed kid, but at the same time, like, he's got a lot of heart, and he's a sensitive dude, and I kind of like, I appreciate that, because it would have been so easy to make him like the young, brash sort of like, cocky guy, but instead you get this beautifully nuanced, which to me harkens back to Viggo Mortensen, is Aragorn, where he's sort of this gentle hero where like you look at him and he's got presence and in those moments, but he doesn't do it by shouting or looking tough. He's very gentle. Yeah, that's the best way I could describe it, and I love that.
And also the fact that he mentions that, like, his father says, oh, so are you part of the what is it, the Sea Guard, is that what it is, or the Queen's Guard?
The Sea Guard.
And then he's like, oh, is it all just about the badge or whatever? And he says, that I'm a better sailor than whatever. So it seems from his comments, at least, and from what we've seen of him earlier on, that he does actually have the skills to back up his, maybe
totally
his opinion of himself. He probably has a high opinion of himself, but it seems like he may actually have those skills to do as well. He's not just some, spoiled kid that's been, riding the tailcoats of his the tailcoat of his father for like all his life, and now just suddenly being like, oh well, I should be getting this, even though he doesn't actually have the skills. So I thought that was kind of interesting as well. But again, I agree exactly. I think that this was really fabulous, this scene. I loved Elendil in the scene as well, how he kind of, we've heard from the actor already before that the way he wants to try and play Elendil is kind of like, this loving father who, gives hard truths and will basically discipline his children in like a tough way in order for them to grow themselves. He won't just give them what they need. And I think that was really cool and really came across well in this episode as well, that he didn't just say to Isildur like, okay, fine, look, you're my son and I'll put you to the top of the list.
Right.
He kind of just like, no, you made your choice. Now you have to, like, you made your bed. Now you have to lie in it. So that was kind of cool. And then like finally towards the end, he kind of like eventually allowed him in, but made him be like a stable sweep.
Loved that.
So,
yeah.
So I thought that was really cool. I just like, I don't know, every minute of seeing Elendil on the screen is just great. So yeah,
it is great. And yeah, he doesn't allow Isildur just a pass. He appreciates the work and determination of all the men of Numenor. He says to his son Isildur, like, look around and
that was cool.
look at what these men have done. Like, you don't just get a pass just because you are my son and because you are skilled. But anyways, we do see Eärien, I think's her name, and Kemen discuss Pharazôn and how to change his mind. And Johnny, we clearly see Eärien is not one of the faithful. She seems determined.
This is what I predicted before, that she would be the one that turns from her father, and she would basically she might end up, well, it seems like that's the case. She's going to not be of the faithful, and then we'll end up after this series maybe with the original family of Isildur, Elendil, Isildur and Eärien, and she'll just be forgotten about because she'll have, died in the whole spoiler alert, whatever is going to happen to Numenor. But so I think I kind of saw this coming, and I don't know. Initially, when I saw her having that little conversation with Kevin or Kemen, I like calling him Kevin for some reason.
I legit Kevin would be like the Monty Python version of him.
Yeah. There are some who call me Kevin.
Kevin. Yeah.
I thought initially like, oh, it might be kind of cool if she kind of disobeys her family and she becomes like, someone of Numenor, and Kemen disobeys his father and he becomes one of the faithful. I thought that'd be kind of a cool, that'd be a really cool kind of thing as well. But it looks like Kemen is probably going to go along with what his father is saying as well, and he's like just learning the rope from him. And that was cool as well when Farazan just had that little chat with Kemen. He was like, "Look, what did he say? Something about the ignorance of youth." The line, but he's just like, "You're such an idiot." Do you not see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I have to say, I love the way I'm blanking on the name of the actor. Is it Tristan?
Kemen,
the guy who plays Ar-Pharazôn.
Oh, I don't even
Tristan
know.
Some of the G. Anyway, I feel terrible, and if that actor is listening to this right now, I'm very sorry. But he is phenomenal. He's so good, and I love. Once again, I'm such a big fan of actors who do less is more, and I love the fact that in that moment he easily could have just like exploded at him or whatever, but I love that he just shoots a look to the two ladies who are working, and they just know immediately, get out of the room, and he just plainly says to him, like, he's like, you're an idiot. Like, I have this under control. And then he's like, do I really have to? I love that they kind of drag out that moment until he finally just lays it out for him. He's like, this is what I'm doing, and then just gets up and leaves.
But he also does it using a cool metaphor about like the tide, like you need to know to turn with the tide and don't go into the the current or whatever. So very Numenorian. And I love that he's like the sea is always right, I suppose.
And I love that he's like educating his son while at the same time just totally giving him a wicked burn at the same time, which is great. And it's nice, and it's also cool to see Kemen sort of being like the fear in his eyes the moment he speaks up. You know what I mean? Like taking orders from an elf. And the way I love that. I think the dynamic of that scene. They're doing a great job with like any like parental and child figures in this show. They do a great job with them and how they interact, which is a tough thing to pull off in a television show. But I feel like they're nailing these familial relationships.
Yeah, definitely. And it was interesting because we had Harry from Fellowship of Fans on last week discussing what Farazan's ambitions are, and he did say, if you're Farazan and Muriel wants to go wage war over in Middle-earth and she wants to take the backings, or she wants to back the elves, and, if you would want to be Farazan kind of going against that decision. But it seems like Farazan isn't thinking about the elves at the moment. And yeah, of course, he doesn't agree with the elves and he doesn't want to be bowing down to the elves at all, but he's thinking more about Middle-earth and how to have trade with Middle-earth, and they're going to set up the ports of Umbar.
He's playing the long game.
He's playing the long game, but I did think that was interesting how he kind of ignored the whole elvish thing that's going on here. Like,
that was one of the things that surprised me most in last week's episode, which was I was sure that at the end of the episode when Muriel changed her mind and she was like, okay, we're going to go and we're going to follow the elf, I was sure that Farazan was going to be like, right, here's my moment to seize power and like, get all of his followers to say, look, she's an elf lover, and try and seize. But like, and then when he didn't, I was like, what the hell is going on? And then, but like, as in when that's like obviously what Kemen was thinking. So when Farazan was breaking it down nice and simple to Kemen and saying, you're an idiot, I was like, Farazan's just doing the exact same thing to me, because I'm clearly an idiot, because I expected Kemen to do I expected him to do the same thing as what Kemen did. So I appreciated him explaining to me his thought process. I was like, very good.
Thank you, Farazan. So
thank you, Dad.
The next scene, we get Halbrand and Galadriel talking about who used who, I suppose, and there's a little bit of like, is he Sauron? Does she? What's going on here? But I don't know. Did you guys pick up anything in this little conversation?
Is this the scene in the Forge, or is this before that?
This is
after
from what
the Forge.
After the Forge. The Forge is just Halbrand on his own, right?
Well, isn't there a scene in the Forge where he's sweeping up the Forge?
Oh,
and she
that's
comes
a bit.
in? That's later.
That's a bit later.
Okay, I can't wait to talk about that scene because I love that. But this was nice. I like seeing. I love the two of them on screen together. I think they have great chemistry. Again, another tricky situation where this could easily be off-putting, seeing them together and finding that balance. But they do a great job. I love the idea that they're sort of like they're friends like she says, they're companions by chance. And we see her learning how to kind of manipulate and sort of play the game, if you will, and the way that he's been like, you're just such a blunt instrument, you just come in like a bull in a china shop, and that's not working for you. And this time we see her being clever, getting Muriel to be like, don't worry, he'll fall in line. He's going to join us. It's going to be great, this whole thing. And he's just sort of like, okay, I gave you some hints, and now you're really running with that. So, and maybe he's kind of seeing like, okay, maybe I shouldn't have given you all those great ideas.
Yeah, it seems like he is being genuine in a lot of his scenes where he's saying, I don't want to have the power and I don't want to leave Numenor. And it's so hard to know, is he tricking the audience or is he just genuine in how he's reacting? But Johnny, I want to get onto this next scene because Galadriel basically teaches 5 Numenorian soldiers how to fight. And what do we think? I kind of thought a lot of the fighting was a bit quirky. And also they're using real sharpened swords and just like jabbing at each other's faces and swiping as hard as they can. I don't know. What did you make of this whole scene?
It was a bit weird. It was like they're trying to take each other's heads off with while they're just all smiling, big grinning ear to ear. They're like, this is great, swinging real swords at each other. But I don't know. I mean, again, it was a fun scene. I enjoyed it, but there's certain things about Numenor that I don't know. When I first saw it on screen in episode 3, I was really blown away. I thought it was really incredible, the scale and just like the detail that they've gone into. But there's something about the lighting in loads of these shots that just makes it feel, I don't know, I can't put my finger on it because I was trying to think to myself earlier, what is, because I'm like, it doesn't feel real, but again, it shouldn't feel real, I suppose, because it's fantasy, but still, it feels like it's too well lit for some reason. Do you know what I mean? I don't know why that is a big problem, but I don't know, just as I said, I'm watching this show, and then as I said, midweek, I went back and watched The Two Towers, and it was just, it's just, the screen's just grainier, and it just gives you more of a feel of you're living the experience. I don't know why that is, but grainier is better.
Digital, and
yeah,
we're living in the age of 4K. It's tough, because not to hijack this and turn it into a film medium thing, but I know what you mean, and I'm glad that this show's done a better job of something. I don't want to knock another show to put another one up, but I feel like Wheel of Time struggled with that a bit, where there were moments you'd be inside an interior of a castle and you're like, there's clearly overhead lighting in this candle-lit room and everything looks perfect and it's too clean and too pristine. Now, having said that, like you said, it's high fantasy. It should have an otherworldly feel to it.
Sure.
But at the same time, sometimes to get things in 4K and get that visual clarity, you sacrifice some of that lived-in feel.
Yeah.
I think we can all agree that the Hobbit movies sort of suffered from that a bit. Everything was too sharp.
If I give another movie that would counter that, would be the Batman from earlier this year, which
totally
the way the Batman was shot was just impeccable. It was one of the most beautiful movies I've seen, I think, in I don't know how long, but it just had that kind of, now again, of course it's Batman, it's going to be dark and mysterious and kind of blurry, but it kind of had those, like, the edges of the screen were kind of blurred out for nearly the entire movie, so maybe that's not exactly the best place to, or the best example to kind of like match it against. But there are ways to make something 4K clear crystal, but then also give it that sort of, not just graininess, but you can add that kind of grain as well, like from a digital film to 4K, I suppose. But anyway, to get on past that, there's just something that is kind of, I'm starting to see it more and more, and I don't know how I feel about it yet. It's kind of taking me out of the action a little bit. But as I said, that scene, it was fine. I don't have any problems with it. It was enjoyable. It was fun. I thought it was kind of cool. Was it a little bit kind of too in your face? Maybe. And was it really realistic that these people who don't obviously have huge amounts of sword training are just suddenly fighting an elf with all sharpened swords? They could have all just killed each other by accident. So, and they're all just, they're all kids, I suppose. They're all supposed to be young people, I suppose. So it was a bit weird.
Well, we do see that Valandil gets promoted to lieutenant, whichever you want to say. So, I think we'll move swiftly on. Anyways, we've already talked about Pharazôn giving Kevin his plot for Numenor, but the next scene we get is Tar Palantir, or as I like to call him, Tar Santa Claus, tells Muriel that darkness awaits you in Middle Earth. So again, this was cool to actually get Tar Palantir saying some lines other than just Muriel. So what did you think of this scene, Chase?
I liked it. I liked, again, getting more of him and him being a little more coherent. I think
Yeah.
he's obviously, he's the one who sees. So I have a feeling that what he's telling her, not so much as, I think she's interpreting it literally as in, like, if I go to Middle Earth, I'm going to die or something like that. But I think he's explained to her that the moment you leave is when that other guy, he's going to sow the seeds of doubt while you're gone, which I think is Farazan's plan. Let her do this, she'll go do that. These men will owe me something, and while she's gone, I'm going to plant all the seeds of doubt within these people. Very like Julius Caesar-esque, with
Yeah.
Mark Antony being like, no, guys, she's the queen. She's great. Now, she did abandon us, but she's our queen. She's great. She did leave you, though, for this elf. I don't know if you guys remember that, but anyway, she's great. And so the whole time, everyone's like, wait a minute, So I feel like her dad sees that happening.
Precisely. Yeah, we also get, coming up in the next scene, Isildur is getting punched by Valandil, and he doesn't even get to come along under his wing. He's like, what can I do to make this right? And he's like, you could punch me, and then he gets bent up, and then he's like, we're still not going to bring you along. But the most interesting thing about this scene, I don't know, did you guys pick this up? But it's what Valandil said to Isildur, and he said, someday I hope you find something that you would be willing to sacrifice anything for. So this is foreshadowing, obviously, the One Ring of Power. Johnny, what did you pick up on that, or what do you think?
No, not at all. Good spot.
Immediately.
right in my face, and I'm just like la, just completely ignorant of what was going on. So yeah, no, I didn't pick up on that immediately. But now that
I had to pause it.
That's very obvious.
I paused it, rewound, and was like, I gotta take this shit down.
Yeah.
No, as I said, I only just finished the episode before I jumped online here, so I kind of even sort of went through it more quickly than usual. The last few episodes, I've kind of just been pausing as I'm going along, just to kind of take things in. I'm kind of like, oh my god, I just have to watch that scene again, or I have to go back and just click back and rewatch that landscape shot or something, because I want to just take everything in. But this time it was just okay, quickly just get through it so I could record this episode.
Right,
yeah. Then we move on to see kind of a scene that reminded me a little bit of Pirates of the Caribbean, where Kemen is in the decks of one of the ships, and then he releases all the like oil or gas or whatever that is, and Isildur's sleeping down there, and just like blows up the ships. And then no one seemed to suspect a thing, or they came out of the water, and then Elendil is just like, what are you guys doing here? Chase, what do you think about that?
Oh man, when I saw Kemen doing that, I was so pissed. I was just like, and I was actually worried for a minute that I was like, are they gonna do something crazy? And is Isildur gonna get not like killed, but is he gonna get messed up? And I know the immediate moment when they start struggling for the lamp, I was sort of like, this is the worst idea ever. I'm glad this is him being headstrong here. But at the same time, I guess his justification would be like, if I don't try to stop him, he's gonna do this anyway. So we got it's going down. I was very surprised by the reaction of his dad. Yes, I thought for a second he was going to be like, what were you doing there? Now, having said that, Isildur wanting to go with them gives him no motivation for blowing up ships. That was never going to help his cause. But I don't think we've seen the last of this moment. I think this Kemen being caught by Isildur will be Kemen's undoing ultimately. Like this moment, I think, will be the thing that comes back to bite him later, but also maybe a thing that screws Isildur over, where he's like, there's no way for me to get rid of Kemen or deal with Kemen without admitting that, like, I was there, I was part of this thing. But it was a little strange to me, like you said, that Elendil was just totally like, oh, he was in a fishing boat and you saved him.
Yeah. It was kind of odd, and Kemen was like, "Oh, thankfully Isildur saved my life. He saved my life." And Elendil kind of seemed like he knew what was going on. He knew what was sus, but he was just like,
Did you catch what Isildur said he thought had happened? Because I didn't really pick up on it. I didn't hear the terminology. He said like,
he said I was
something.
No, I thought he just said I was in a fishing boat nearby.
No, but he gave.
He said it was
an explanation.
He just said it must have been a cask. Basically one of the oil things, they called it a cask. And
and like a lamp must have fallen or whatever, and he's just like, and his dad like repeats it, which is like, movie 101 when someone doesn't believe you,
sure.
to be like, a cask. okay.
Yeah. But then also, when it cut to the next scene, it was Elendil explaining to Muriel what had happened, and he said, "We expect like foul play or something." But he said,
Totally. So he immediately
So
admits that he's like,
it's not
someone did
like
this.
it's not like, oh, it's just been forgotten about. He did say, okay, there could be some funny business at play here, so we're looking into it.
Yeah. Now, one of the more interesting scenes in the show is Halbrand admitting, we were talking about this earlier, Chase, Halbrand admitting his wrongdoing to Galadriel, and then it was really interesting how they tied that to scenes of Waldrick and his followers bowing to Adar, where, Halbrand doesn't explain what he's done, but he's like, you don't know the things that I've done, the things that I had to do to survive, to be on that raft in the beginning, while it's showing like all the guys bowing down to Adar.
Yep.
So that's interesting. What do we think about this scene, or what do we think he's admitting to here?
If he is Sauron, this is just chef's kiss writing, because we're all thinking, oh, he pledged fealty to these people. But if he's Sauron, he's like, you don't know what I did. I had to debase myself to be this form, whatever, to get out of there, to do these things. And what I did is I didn't betray the humans. I betrayed Morgoth. I failed him. That's his big shame. And that would be such a twist because again, everyone has this feeling of like, oh, he's the reluctant hero like Aragorn. And my feeling is, man, if they totally subvert expectations and his reveal of being Sauron, if he is, and he is just like, I told you. Everything I told you was true. That I wasn't who you thought I was. That I wasn't good. I found this off a dead man or whatever it was. And that, I had to do terrible things. And because, as we know from the books, Sauron did repent at one point. And whether it was just out of fear of the Valar or whatever, he did try. And then as soon as they gave him like, well, this is what you got to do, and he was like, oof, that seems like a lot of work.
We don't know how genuine he was.
Maybe I'll just go back to being evil, which we all described as being, the easy way out.
Yeah.
And so in the dark. I love the idea of her motivating him to go back. She unwittingly has just motivated Sauron to be like, you're right, I got to do this, because it creates a great bit of dramatic irony where it's like the very person you went to stop, in the same way that Gil-galad thought you would, you just brought him back to Middle Earth and you've stirred up this fire. It's like, the Tolkien, huge fan of, Norse mythology and things like that. The fates, as hard as you push against it, you're just going to run faster towards your destiny. And so, like I said, if he's not Sauron, a lot of this just is a nice, beautiful scene. But if he is, oh man, that is just the most beautiful layout of just, again, walking that tightrope, which they seem to be good at in a lot of these moments.
This was also the first episode that I actually felt like, if Halbrand turns out to be Sauron, I will enjoy going back and looking at some of the foreshadowing leading up to it. Especially when he does say, he says like, my people, are the ones that turned to Morgoth, and then Galadriel says something like, people before you, but not you.
Yeah,
and
not
you. Not you. And he's just like, you don't know what I've done. But Johnny, what do you make?
Yeah.
What do you make of it all?
No, yeah, I think that was cool. I think we forgot to mention the earlier scene where Halbrand and Galadriel were speaking just as like they met with Muriel, and Muriel leaves. Yeah. Also, one small thing there, Muriel takes her leave and Galadriel bows. I was like, I thought people didn't bow in
Did she?
What's going on? Yeah, she bows her head, and I was like,
she obviously forgot.
We were told not to do that. Yeah, she just
maybe that was her sign of
customs.
That was her disrespect. Like,
yeah. She just bows, and she's like, "Oh, sorry," gives her the finger or something, just to make up for it. So also in that scene, there was that big window behind the big circle. Did you guys see that?
The eye, yeah,
the big circle that kind of looked like the eye as well. So that's like, there's so many foreshadowing things. But I mean,
I saw that last week, and people were talking about that was one of the promo
really?
shots.
There's a great meme where someone just literally copy and pasted the eye of Sauron over it.
Okay. I saw that. All right.
I was going to say, I can't remember where I heard this, but it wasn't my thought. But I think it may have been Robert from In Deep Geek. I think he was saying that every time we hear about Halbrand going back and being like, you were the lost king of the Southlands, and we need to like get the real king of the Southlands. He's like, we realize that the Southlands is Mordor. If you just take out the word Southlands and put in the word Mordor and be like, he's going to be the king of Mordor, we're going to crown you as the King of Mordor. The King of Mordor is returning. Well, if you just think about it that way, you're like,
Yeah.
oh, wait, this is another thing that's really foreshadowing it as
Right.
well. And so there's loads of these little things, but I thought that was kind of cool. Being like, oh, you are the King of the Southlands, aka the King of Mordor. So yeah,
That is true.
really cool.
And
Dave,
we actually.
you said, oh, sorry.
Oh, sorry. No. Go ahead.
I was to say, it just only because you just said it and it just triggered again going off crazy conspiracy theories. America's greatest export. Anyway, when you said the line that she said, your ancestors, not you, and he had took a moment. If he's not Sauron, we could find out that what he had to do this, maybe he is much older than we think he is, and maybe he made some deal with Morgoth or whoever, and he has somehow been gifted some kind of long life, which I think would be interesting if he was like, no, I was there. I am the ancestor. I was given the sword.
yeah.
That
Wow.
hilt was for me, and I am
Yeah.
the thing. Like that would be like, oh shit. But again, that's a theory that just popped in my head right as you said that, because I was like, oh, that'd be an interesting take.
That is
but I'm
interesting.
still-
It would be lore breaking, because I was just trying to think there, like, who could that
Yeah.
be? Could that, like, obviously it couldn't be a Numenor. It couldn't be the Mouth of Sauron because it's a Numenorian. Couldn't be any of the Nazgul because, well, it could be a Nazgul.
This episode definitely
He's a
taught us
lord.
that lore breaking is on the table.
Oh yes, we'll get to that in a minute. I just want to finish up with the last scene
Yeah.
of Numenor, because the whole last scene of the show, I think it was
Yeah.
Halbrand eventually accepts his role. Well, first of all, he throws down his little bag thing, and then at the last
Some
second he
trinket.
grabs it again, and then Numenor depart. We get that great scene of all the Numenorians like getting in their gear, getting ready for a
Yeah.
big long journey, and then Isildur gets stable duty and whatnot, and then Galadriel joins the party. So all this, John,
Also,
did you like it?
Galadriel, where did she get that armor out of?
I was going to
Thank-
ask that at the end.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Because I had talked about this on Voice of Geekdom, I think, which I was like, I was really, because she says in or Morphith said in an interview, a question about the armor. She was like, it's gifted to her.
Yeah.
So my theory is either I was like, because if Halbrand just made that armor overnight, that's very impressive that he's skilled in elven smithing, because it's very elf-like. Or I love the idea that maybe the Numenorians and all the stuff they had, those trinkets of the past, they've got Narsil, they've got Tuor's axe and all that stuff.
Axe,
That
yeah.
maybe they're like, look, we have one of your your ancestors, we have armor from the first age or whatever that and
right.
it just happens to fit you. But
That would be cool.
That would be great. But also she's rocking a new sword, and I was really hoping that it was going to be like Ringil or something like that, the sword of Fingolfin
yeah.
or something like that. That would be
Yeah. Oh, well,
awesome.
no.
But yeah, that's too much. I know. I really want it, but the fact that she unceremoniously just got on the ship with it and all that, we
Yeah.
didn't make any.
No, but also that sword, I think we've seen that. Am I confusing that now with the one that she had at the beginning? Maybe. Well, I've seen in
Yeah,
the
this is a
trailers.
different
We saw that sword a couple of times. We saw it being lifted up.
Yes, that is that
at
sword
some
that she's
point as
rocking
well.
now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
I want to know. Yo, sorry.
No, I was
go
going
on.
to say I'm not a huge fan of the design of that sword. It's okay, it's fine, it's a sword, but it just looks like some sort of standard sword that maybe there's thousands of them made and just given out to regular soldiers.
Factory
Yeah.
standard,
I
yeah.
think for me, if I imagine the sword of Ringil, I'm going to be thinking of something a lot more elegant and a lot more, I don't know, just something a lot cooler than just that visual.
Well, if you think of the designs for Glamdring or even trying to think of some other swords, but those are very simple. If you think about
Narsil
almost
as well.
Narsil, and if you put Glamdring right next to Strider's first sword before he switched, they're very similar. So I almost wonder if
Yeah.
first age swords were just very beautiful in their simplicity. But I see what you mean. You would probably want something a bit more ornate, since her dagger is so
Yeah.
elegant and beautiful, and this does not have some of that. But we'll see. I have a feeling though, based on
sure.
what we've seen, it's not a sword of note.
It's fair
Nah,
enough.
I think it's just
Even the swords that Halbrand was crafting and the ones that all the guys were given, those were the ones that we saw in the first images of the hands.
Yeah.
Somebody was holding. I
think that was
hilt
Halbrand.
with a horse. Was
Yeah,
it okay? Maybe
so,
yeah.
yeah.
Holding it with the hilt with the horse's head, and those were the swords that the guys were using when they were all fighting or being trained by Galadriel. So those swords look gorgeous. I was like,
Beautiful. I love the
I want
inlay.
one of those.
Yeah. That'll be when someone starts making those replica props.
Yeah.
Those will
Of
be
course,
the next ones we buy.
Yeah, that
sure.
was a pretty cool scene as well when Halbrand like flicked up the sword and did a little
Oh, yeah.
twirl with it. But yeah, that's all we can say about Numenor, unless we can come back to it a little bit later. But we'll move on to the near enough the start of the episode. We get to see Adar in the sunlight, and I thought this was interesting. Like he's just kind of revealing himself into the sun, and it's showing that distinction between him and the orcs and how he is kind of on a pedestal at a much higher level, and he brings that other orc in and burns his arm, and that was a pretty cool scene. Johnny,
Do you know what that reminded me of?
Yeah, what does that remind you of?
I am trying to remember, is it Rocky 2 or something like that? I think it's one of the
excited
Rockies.
to see where this goes.
I think it's one of the Rockies where it's like that tall, giant, blonde Russian guy or something.
Oh, I think it's Rocky 3, right? Dolph Lundgren.
Maybe it's Rocky 3.
Yeah.
But I think it's that actor. I'm trying to remember if it's in the Rocky movie or if it's in a different movie where basically he's like with his crew or something, and there's this guy who's the boss, and he's like, "Hey, show them how tough you are." And he like whips out a lighter and lights it, and then he gets your man to just put his arm over the lighter, and he just holds it there, and he just basically burns his arm to show his like loyalty to this guy, and then eventually after like holding it there for 20 seconds, he just like closes the lighter, and the guy just like he's like, "Go and get yourself, go to the nurse, because obviously you need to get that wound seen to now."
Yeah.
But basically it was just a
Definitely
test
gonna leave
of
a mark.
loyalty.
Want to put some
so-
ointment on that.
You're going to become an orc in any
Pretty
moment.
gross
Yeah.
as well. The orc's arm physically starts to boil and bubble.
Bubbling up, yeah.
I felt bad for the orc. I wanted to be like, "Can you maybe wrap this up?"
Yeah.
Because where he is like, he's like listening. He's like,
Yeah.
And his like hands smoking, and he's like, "Dude, totally."
Yeah,
Anyway,
Adar's
I mean,
there like holding his arm, and he's just like, and actually that
Yeah.
reminds me of another time
Yeah.
when I was there.
he's all like,
"Come
"Yeah."
on."
Can you imagine how bad that smelt as well?
Oh, horrible!
yeah.
Like, well, or
like
no,
orcs,
maybe like bacon.
orcs are not going to smell good anyway, So
Yeah.
I can't imagine burning orc is going to be much better.
No, but we do get to see Is it Austerith or Austerieth? I can
Austerieth,
never-
yeah.
Austerieth, yeah. So we get to see Bronwyn trying to rile up the crowd, and then Waldrick comes in, and there's a little bit of a political debate between Waldrick and Bronwyn of which we should do. Should we stand and fight, or should we just bow down to these people? So there's I think that was definitely coming from the last episode. We all knew where Waldrick's allegiances were going to lie. And of course, we do get to see
The problem is
him.
he doesn't know where his allegiances lie.
No, that's yeah.
You're Sauron, right?
You're
That's
Sauron.
not- yeah.
Are you Sauron?
You are.
Yeah.
You are
Yeah.
Sauron.
Yeah.
Are you
Whoever
not?
is Sauron, I'm following you.
Yeah.
That
The thing
was
is,
pretty
Waldrick's
funny.
Sauron. He just doesn't know it yet.
That could be the case. But why do we think, Chase, I'll ask you this. Why do you think that Adar isn't happy in the scene when Waldrick assumes that he's Sauron? Is he annoyed that his secret is found out, or is he annoyed that he's being compared to this other person?
I think he's annoyed that he's being compared to Sauron. And also, I'm hoping, because I think that, just jump ahead a little bit, he says, okay, prove yourself. And he wants to have him go kill Ian Blackburn's character with the knife. And we don't see it in classic, television trope. If you don't see someone die on screen, they ain't dead. So I wonder if this is a moment of two things. One, where he's just like, I'm not Sauron, and I'm not with Sauron, in the sense that like I've got my own plan.
Yeah.
And two, I think he's looking at him like, you humans are so fucking stupid and weak.
Yeah.
You look at you throwing yourself at my feet, and you don't even know who I am. You don't know what I want. I haven't told you any of my plans, and you're already like, I'll swear fealty to you. And you're willing to kill one of your own on a whim? Like, you have no idea. He's just like, you guys suck. And I feel like that, I hope that gets mentioned next episode, where he kind of explains his feelings towards humans, because when we first are introduced to him, he has this beautiful sort of nuanced thing of not being the stereotypical bad guy, but at the same time, you're like, you're enslaving people in your little camps, so you're definitely not a good guy. You're not a misunderstood villain. He is evil, but I would like to know that he has some layers to him and some feelings about why he's, his justifications for what it is he's doing. But I loved that scene. I love it because, once again, we have a bunch of villains who aren't your stereotypical fantasy villains of like, I'm big scary guy and I yell and do creepy things. He's just like, that guy just takes his time, and I love that. I love the way he's like, I'm in no hurry. I am in complete control here.
I also just love the look of him and the way he sounds.
Yeah.
He's
very cool.
He is very cool and he oozes class. But Johnny, in this next scene, we get to see, I don't know, you can go back and talk about the last one as well, but also we have Bronwyn suddenly just like changing her mind and being like, actually, maybe we should swear fealty to this guy. I don't know. She doesn't seem like the best politician ever, but we also get Arondir trying to talk her out of it and also figuring out that the hilt is some sort of key. So, how do you break down all this?
This is not my favorite part. Bronwyn is not my favorite character. Her voice is annoying. I don't like her accent. Sorry,
I was going to bring that up,
but her accent is really, really annoying. I love when she's whispering because I can't hear her annoying. Like kind of start trying to put on a weird Northern English accent, and it sounds so weird. And I don't know, for some reason, I was like I can't. Maybe Chase, maybe for you as an American, you don't really hear the differences between, like, for example, as Irish people, when we hear the Harfoot speaking, it's kind of a little bit difficult to not focus on the accents that they're using and think like they're doing these like fake Irish accents that are really not coming across very well. And
I'm a little more forgiving when I am a stickler for accents in shows typically, but for something like this, because it's such a heightened fantasy world and that they're not actually Irish, you're like, this is a Gaelic sort of Celtic sounding accent, which I'm all right with, and it's not like so over the top. If they were like Lucky Charms Leprechaun being like, come on Nori, let's go on an adventure, like
that would be worse.
I'd be like, sweet baby Jesus, someone do something. But the fact that it's sort of just sing-songy and sort of has the hard R and goes through there, I'm okay with it. With her accent, I couldn't pinpoint what it was. Like I am, as an actor, I cannot sit here and in good conscience knock another actor's performance without knowing, because look, so much of this stuff is made in editing, and you make choices, and sometimes they work, and sometimes they don't. The issue I have with her accent, which I think is actually good, I think it's just it sounds different from everyone else's. It's almost too clean in it's almost like she's so good at doing that accent, it doesn't have any of the like flavor.
Nobody else can keep up.
And so everyone else's sounds a little bit more like earthy, and I don't know if that's a good way of describing it. But yes, when she does speak, I can't articulate it exactly, but it does seem different than everyone else's, and I'm more aware of the accent. Yes.
Sorry, I was just going to say, if you look at her and then if you look at Waldrig, I believe when he's speaking, he's like, "Have you heard of him, lad?
Yeah.
I fully believe him in this world, but then she just seems too like pretty and too. I don't know what it is. Maybe it's just the style of her character.
I don't think it's a pretty accent at all. I think
I'm talking about her physical appearance. I'm like, she doesn't look like she belongs with this accent.
Sure. That's exactly it. It's like seeing a gorgeous girl from Athlone or something with a horrible accent. You're like, oh god.
What's wrong with Athlone? Sorry to our listeners in Athlone. I know there's 3 of you out there.
I'm joking. I'm just a little dig at Athlone people. But what I was going to say was as well, I'm not really a huge fan of Theo's accent either. So I suppose like mother, like son. So but then out of those, the main people that we hear from the Southlands, Theo, Bronwyn, and Waldrig. I think he's got a class accent. I really like him. And
Waldrig is
freaky
cool.
and kind of he's cool. I like him. I love his little whatever you call that little thing that he wears around his neck.
I know his
like
his
torque or
headphones
something
that he puts on occasionally when he's running. It's like his little active wear, his Sony little earbuds.
Yeah. It's just so, I don't know, I can't imagine someone of his kind of standing being like, I'm just going to go out shopping because I really feel like I need an accessory.
I need to accessorize. I love the idea of every morning he gets up and finds some reflective surface and puts that thing on and is just like, I look good.
There you go.
And he's like, Sauron.
If Sauron sees me, I want to look my best.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, could be the day. Could be the big day. We get to see Sauron.
Now, I don't know what's going to happen with this whole sword hilt and them saying it's a key. If they go the direction that I think they might be going in, I'm going to be. I don't think I'm going to like it at all. If that like sword like slots into like a wall and then you twist it or something, kind of like Raiders of the Lost Ark or something like this. I'm like, I don't know if that's what I want to happen at all. But what do you guys feel about it?
I doubt that's the case. Like, we see that the
Right.
hilt has power in it, and you know, it obviously drinks blood, and there's definitely more to it than just like slotting into
I hope
a
so. I
wall
hope
or
so.
something. Because
Yeah, but just the way that someone said, like, was it Bronwyn said it's a key, or Arondir maybe said it's
well,
It's a
what
key.
I think it is, your man Arondir is like peeling back all the ivy, and you can see that this sword or hilt was used to make some sort of sacrifice. That's what it looked like for me, anyways. So I don't know. Is it a key, as in it's kind of like
blood
something
is the
that?
key or something? Or,
Well, I was just thinking of something that, like, when you have that, you are the true leader or king of Mordor or something. I don't know, but there is some sort of power in it, and that's yet to reveal itself.
I
But,
think the term key is being replaced with, like, it is essential. It's an essential thing. It is an ingredient to this thing. And I think you're totally right that imagery we saw of the sacrifice, and I think that maybe, in his attempt or pursuit to become a god, this sword is the key to doing that for Adar.
Yeah.
To talk about that scene though, did anyone else think that when she came down from the tower and her and Arondir were fighting about handing the thing over, that was your initial reaction?
I
This
thought
is
it
them.
was fake.
Thank you. Okay,
Yeah.
so that threw
Okay.
me. And look, it's not too late for that not to be the case. Like the next episode they reveal something. I don't know how that speech was supposed to motivate anyone.
Yeah.
Did you
Other
just
than
think it was fake because it was really loud and public?
No,
very loud
because
in
they
public
basically said, like,
in 180. Yeah.
Yeah, and also the fact that they were saying there has to be another way. There has to be another way, and then immediately it cuts to them coming down, being like, "Okay, drastic change," and then and I was like, "Okay, this
Okay,
is definitely
so
a plan."
the editing
But then
as well.
but then also about 2 or 3 sentences in, I was like, "Okay, this doesn't sound like it is actually a plan. It sounds like she's just had a complete change of heart." So I don't know. It was very weird, but Chase, I definitely had the same initial
Okay.
feeling of it. Yeah.
I'm glad that wasn't just me, because I was sitting there being like, "Oh, this is what are they gonna do here?
Yeah.
This is clever."
Yeah.
And then when it didn't, I was worried. I was
Yeah.
very
Yeah.
worried. I was like, "This is the only scene so far of this episode that has completely taken me out of the world." Whereas everything else, I was kind of like, "Damn, man, this is good stuff." That hurt my heart a little bit, and I'm hoping that it's something that gets revealed in the next episode. Again, I am very forgiving with these things, because I've done many a project where you wrap a scene and you're like, "Oh, we nailed that, guys." And for whatever reason, either look, it's something out of your control, whether it's the taste of the editor that comes out and it's not that great, or it's like, man, we didn't get enough coverage of that one bit, so those two connecting moments don't work, or we don't have that coverage of your take, and so we've got only the one wide and it doesn't sell as well there. So again, like, I understand that, like, this is a big machine, this show, and not everything's going to come out pristine every time. So we'll see, though. We'll see what's happening with that.
We will, indeed. And we finish off those scenes by getting a fantastic shot of all the orcs marching towards Ostirith. And this, I've heard this complaint before, where people are like, "Oh, there's not that many, like, we never see more than 10 orcs on screen at the same time." But and I know this is a wide shot and it was all CGI or whatever, but like, I really felt like this was cool, and you got to see the full scale and power of the orcs in this. But anyways, we'll swiftly move on. There's not
Did any of you guys see one orc? Sorry to just get in here with my last point. There was one orc that was walking up.
Go on.
There was one orc that was walking up holding a torch, like, just at the end, and it zoomed in on his face. He had this big, like, kind of fat circular face.
Yeah.
And it just
I know
reminded
what
me
you're
of those. What do you think I'm going to say?
Oh no, I was going to say, I just remember that he reminded me of the guards out front of Jabba's palace.
Exactly. That's
Yes.
exactly what I was going to say. I was
Yeah.
like,
Oh,
I've seen this in Star Wars.
Yeah,
The
he's
green guys,
typecast.
what are
That
they
poor
called?
orc has been typecast in all these different shows. He's like, "Yeah, I was in Book of Boba Fett and like booked this
Book
gig
of
on
Boba
Rings
Fett
of
as
Power."
well. Yeah, those guys. What are they called? I can't remember.
Oh, I can't
When I
remember
saw
what
him,
their
I was
name
just
is.
like, his face just, again, he was an orc, but he just
Yeah.
reminded me of those
Totally.
green guards. Yeah. Anyway, sorry. I'm really glad that you picked up on that as well, Chase.
Totally.
They are the Gamorreans. That's what they are.
Gamorreans.
Yeah. So good catch. The Gamorrean
Like
guards.
Gamora, isn't she the also green one from
Yeah. I thought about that. I'm like, wow,
That's true,
Gamorreans.
actually.
the Guardians of the Galaxy? Gamora.
Maybe that's where they got the name. Well,
Maybe that's the tip of the cap to that. Yeah, I don't know.
maybe. So, anyways, we get on to the last location or locations, which is all Linden. Yeah, I think it's just Linden. So, first of all, the first thing I wanted to pick up on was that Durin almost says the word shit, which I thought was hilarious. And it happens in the same week where, I don't know, Chase, did you see this, or Johnny? That show, what is it? The new Star Wars show, I can't remember the name of it. Andor.
Oh, Andor. I haven't watched Andor yet.
No, but I haven't seen it either, but I just saw that they used the word shit in Star Wars for the first time there too, and I was like, what a coincidence.
Not voodoo?
No, they don't.
They
don't say Banta Pother or what do they say?
They have all these different things. I just remember Sebulba saying that.
Yeah, no. They say the word, like, I think it's just some guard just literally just goes shit.
Wow.
But yeah, we get this incredible dining scene that we've been waiting to see ever since the trailers came out.
12 seconds.
Yeah, so
It was
Johnny,
way too short.
What is it? Yeah,
I love that I saw everybody online being like, "Oh, I hope this is like a 10-minute scene. I hope it's amazing." And I knew the moment everyone said that, I'm like, "Oh, guys, this is going to be 15 seconds at most of this dinner scene, and it will move on." Like, I was like, it's just not.
And to be honest, I need to go back and rewatch the episode, as we all do, I'd imagine. But like, I kind of forget everything that happened at the scene, apart from Gil-galad and Durin kind of exchanging some words with each other, and then the whole table thing. Durin being like, "This table is actually really valuable."
Yeah,
but,
that is it. That is literally it. At the beginning,
that's all that happened,
they say a bit about they drink some wine and they say like, "Hey, look at us breaking bread. Who would have thought? Not me."
Yeah, who would have thunk it?
And then who would have thunk it? And they move on. I saw a lot of discourse online about the female elves with the covered hair and the veiled faces. It is now reached. It didn't bother me at first. It now bothers me. I don't
the
like
fact
the idea
that
of the
they're kind
elves
of
covering
second-class citizens.
Yes, and they don't speak and they don't do whatever. And like, look, people are gonna be like, "You shill, you feminist shill," or whatever, and yell at me. But I'm just like, the elves of all the races. One of the things I am drawn to them by is the fact that I'm like, they seem like they're a little ahead of the curve of the average Middle Earth citizen in terms of being like, why would women be second class? Like, why? Like, there's just no reason. And so it feels weird. Also, like, you're inviting them to dinner, but they can't take, like, how are they going to eat? Like, what are we doing here?
That's true. It is a little odd.
Yeah, it hurts. It hurts my heart. It hurts my heart to see them.
I did hear people talking about that when the very first image came out of that table scene, and I was kind of hoping, well, these are guests at the dinner table. Maybe they will have things to contribute to the conversation, but we didn't see that. I don't know. I hope they're not treated as second-class citizens, but we're just not going to hear.
But
anything
again, the scene was so short, so we didn't get to see anything of it.
Who knows?
Really. So again, I mean, I didn't like the reason. The reason I'm saying that is the scene was so short. I didn't even really pick up on the fact that they were there. I kind of just didn't even really notice them. As kind of like I was
seat fillers. No.
Because I don't know, every time
like
there's a new scene happening, I'm just staring off into the distance, just getting lost in the backgrounds and all the like detailed backdrops. I'm like, oh my god, look at that tree over there, look at that mountain.
So
I'm just
beautiful.
like staring at mountains. That's all I'm doing.
Tolkien.
I gotta say the production designer of this show and all the people that went into designing those costumes and this and that. Fantastic! Those guys they're amazing. They're phenomenal. Those people have put their blood, sweat, and tears into this show, and it does show. This is not easy. There's so many characters and races and everyone has a pretty, in terms of their costume, very visually distinct look, which I like. I like the idea that whereas in the beginning of the show I kind of didn't feel this way, where now I feel like when you can look at a character, look at their outfit, and go, I know exactly where you're from. Which is how it should be.
Exactly.
Whereas some shows don't nail that with fantasy, where you're looking at someone and you're like, okay, you could be anybody, and I have to look at your ears to know if you're this. And it's like, whereas I like that the elves are now starting to feel more distinct to me.
One thing I did think about this is when we got the very first image of that table scene and a couple of images from the trailer. I was just looking forward to seeing like how this connects, or how does Linden work? like you see this image of them in the forest, but you're like, where is this in terms of like the city? Like, is it near someone's house? Is it like right in the middle of the forest? And like, is there a big path going there? And do you know when you see the scenes of like all the dead elves carved into the trees, and then you've got that big like hallway of trees, like where is that going, or where does that end? It's kind of different from when you see Rivendell, and you kind of have an idea of like where the entrance is into the city and where the council is, and you know, you kind of, I just don't have that feel yet. I just feel like these are individual scenes just in random areas, and we don't know
just
how
that
they
one
connect.
big tree as well, that where most big
I'm like,
right. Everyone hangs out.
And,
is that near some big building or some important abode? I don't really know.
Right.
It's just
it just seems like it's overlooking a cliff. Yeah. It is hard. Yeah, the sense of scale is tough in that area. Like, I have no idea how, because you see these wide shots of Lindon and it looks beautiful, but you kind of, we're always in the same, feels like we're in the same two places, and that's, you know, we've also spent the least amount of time there of all the
true. Yeah,
the
I hope it'll come more to light in the next couple of episodes and seasons
too. I want to see some more of that.
Oh hell yeah.
We're not getting Region at all.
But anyways, we get Elrond having a little bit of a discourse with Gil-galad, and Gil-galad introduces Elrond to the rotting tree, which is quite shocking. Johnny, what did you make of all this?
Yeah, that was quite the shock, all right, when we saw the leaf falling initially, when I think in episode 1,
After
just
the
as
meteorite.
the meteor like passed overhead, and obviously Gil-galad picks up the leaf and he sees that the veins all turn into black. So it seems like in however long that's been, I don't know how, we're talking a couple of weeks or something, probably since that, it seems like this, like infection in this tree or whatever it is, has really developed, and now it's at a stage where half the tree is like falling apart. So it's a bit weird. I don't know where this story is going. I don't know how I feel about it. I don't know how I feel about the character of Gil-galad. I'm starting to not really like Gil-galad, which is really annoying. I really wanted to love this character, and he just seems like he's just always moody, and he's just,
brooding.
Always kind of, he's brooding, but I don't know. He just talks with like a clenched lip all the time. It's like, it's kind of like, seems like, Professor Snape or something, like Potter. Like, I don't know. The way he's kind of like, kind of really.
Kevin Spacey
like,
meets Snape.
Yeah, it won't, like, as in he's like, it won't be our world, but all worlds, and all this kind of thing, and you're kind of
all peoples.
So,
peoples. Yeah,
all people. It's like his lips don't move at all. So I don't know. That's just a small detail, but I don't really know. There's something about his character yet that I really hope that they expand his character a little bit more, and we get to see more of it. Because for the, like, I don't know, at the moment, he's just, I don't know, he's not letting Elrond in on all what's going on, and eventually he does. And he's like, okay, I've basically got you to betray your friend. One of my biggest reliefs of this episode was the fact that Elrond remained true to his oath.
Yeah.
And he didn't sell out his friend. I was so afraid that Elrond, they were going to like, okay, you know how you all love Elrond? Well, now we're going to make him sell out his friend and break his oath. I was like, don't do that, please. And they did.
It would explain the rest of his life, though.
Yeah,
being
that's
so
exactly
happy.
it. That's why especially in Moria as well, as where his wife got taken.
Yeah.
So I was like, that would be the oath
in the Misty
against
Mountains,
this rock.
wasn't it? Yeah.
Sorry, in the Misty Mountains.
Misty Mountains,
So
yeah.
So like making his oath on the mountain to say like, this is like
irony,
that would make sense. Yeah. So
No, that
I
could
was
be
really
cool.
terrified. That's what that was the way that they were going. But I'm glad that in this way I'm just really glad that at the end of the episode, Elrond and Doran are still mates. I don't know. I couldn't bear seeing them guys breaking up.
Yeah, I am
They're
delighted
a wonderful couple.
that they remain friends. But I think the biggest thing, or it's probably the most controversial thing about this episode, we're going to see today and later on this evening on Twitter, all the lore changes, especially for this scene. So first of all, we've got the tree dying, and like the fact that the elves are just like now diminishing because of who knows. But then we get this like flashback scene because Gil-galad asks Elrond to recite this song, and thankfully Elrond does say, well, that is just a rumor or whatever, or it's just kind of it's kind of bullshit. But then he recites this whole thing, and Chase, would you like to explain what the hell's going on here?
So this is where everyone's like, oh, don't invite that shill back on your show ever again, because they had me all the way. I thought that story was great. I love the imagery, and I love the
Oh,
idea of the
imagery
creation
was
of,
insane.
yeah, and the
Yeah.
idea of Mithril being kind of touched by good and evil and made this thing of like this coming together. So it's sort of like this, double-edged sword of where like, yes, it's very light, it's powerful, but like it is going after this is folly. Like it is a bad idea.
Mm-hmm.
And it is sort of this, yeah, just this cursed thing. I thought that was all great. Now, it being the reason for, or this thing of the elves diminishing and the spring deadline, I am begging. I am just sweet baby Eru, Iluvatar. I'm and all the Valar. I am begging that either Gil-galad is lying about this to get Elrond to go do this, or he and everyone else has been lied to, and this is how they get tricked into making these rings, is someone convinces them, hey, you guys are going to diminish if you don't do this thing, and then we find someone's been pulling strings in the background to make this happen. Because the idea of this arbitrary spring death, like, okay, by spring you guys will all be toast, and you'll just be shadows. See, because I'm like, who came up with that? Is some elf
Yeah.
forensics guy pulling? He's like, all right, well, at this rate, since this number of leaves has gone in this number of days, by the time we hit spring, we all should be dead. I'm like, no. But having said that, the lore breaking of the creation of Mithril, I kind of loved it. I especially because I thought in that moment, I'm like, is that Glorfindel? Oh my god, are we gonna get him? And it, obviously, well, he wasn't named, but beautiful shot. I love that, and I love the story. I think the story of it is cool. So that didn't bother me. What bothers me is elves dying, and obviously, like, diminish is a term used, and does it just make them mortal? Does it do this? But this sort of made up problem did not sit well with me. Now, having said that, I am a firm believer that this is season 1 of a 5-season show. We're only episode 5, and I will give Gil-galad all the time in the world to develop that character. We've only seen him in 2 episodes, really, and he's had very little screen time, and I always want to give everyone the benefit of the doubt. But I really, really hope this story thing, or this reason the diminishing is a misdirection or a lie.
Yeah,
Completely.
that is interesting, because I was also going to say that my unpopular opinion would be that I really enjoyed the story as well, and I believe that like Mithril had nothing to, like, there's no explanation in the book where Mithril came from, and I think this is cool that it makes it more important. But
Yeah,
the thing that I didn't really understand is like, what the hell? How is this Mithril going to help the elves not diminish? Are they going to like maybe
how
wasn't
literally
explained,
are
like,
we bathing in this?
We're
Yeah,
gonna
bathe
sprinkle
all
it
the
over
elves.
you.
Yeah, just a little bit of Mithril in the morning. You pop 2 Mithril with your morning lembas.
That was
and
the
you'll be
one
fine.
thing that I just didn't understand. Like, the whole lore breaking thing was fine for me, and we're probably going to see a lot of discourse online, and I'm sure people are going to be up in arms.
People are
I've
gonna
already
have
seen some of it.
field
I
day.
know the accounts that are going to be after us, Johnny. I know the ones.
Oh, yeah.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
I've closed my account and made it private, so I can't get attacked after
nice,
this episode
Oh,
airs.
we're open for all attack.
Yeah,
there we
attack
go.
us. We don't mind. But
honestly,
but
I'd
yeah,
like to have a conversation.
my opinion is the same as both of yours, really. And yeah, I mean, I really enjoyed the whole imagery and the little fight scene between. And what did it say? Like, he had the valor of Manwë, or he had I can't remember, something of Manwë, maybe the
I
strength.
think it's
of
the
Manwë.
light, only as much
maybe-
light as and like the spirit of Manwë in him. You
The
know
spirit
what I mean?
of Manwë, yeah, and then so like he poured all of his light into the tree, and then the Balrog poured all the darkness in, and whatever, and then Gil-galad just kind of ignored all the darkness that would possibly be in Mithril as well. He was like, so it has all this light, and it's going to be what, and we're kind of going. But you also said it's like 50-50, 50% light,
Yeah.
50% darkness. What about that? Maybe this will just make you diminish even worse, whatever. So again, we know from Tolkien's lore that elves will diminish if they stay in Middle Earth. But we're talking millennia. Like, it's really, really slow rate of kind of just slowly their bodies are kind of just burning out, and their souls just remain, and eventually they'll just, their bodies will fade away. But this whole thing of spring, even what month is it? What time of year is it? I have no
and the
idea.
thing is,
Like,
we don't
is
even know. Is it fall?
Yeah, is it winter? I don't know. Like maybe like spring. What does that mean? Like in
Seems
3
to be
weeks,
summer
guys,
in Numenor.
you know.
Very right.
Yeah.
Because it kind of
Yeah.
looks like spring in the Southlands right now. It's very green.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Hard
we
to
got
know.
that scene of the people harvesting as well, and like
Mm-hmm.
cutting the grain. So I mean, I thought that might mean it was into summer, late summer even that they're harvesting. So
Not to derail us, but there are some theories that maybe there are different timelines, and what we're
Yes,
seeing in
there
different
are.
areas is
There
not
are.
happening at the same
I'm
time.
kind of hoping that's a thing. I'm kind of
That
hoping.
could be very interesting. I'm trying to think of how that would serve the story in terms of like how does that all add up? Because I mean, obviously Numenor and the Southlands has got to be the same time because they're showing
Yeah.
up to help. So that sort of made me think that maybe the timelines are not different
Yeah.
because
I
now
do always
everyone's-
like that in a show where we get this kind of like sudden like reveal way into this. You're like, oh my god, this is. But
like
I mean,
The
as you
Witcher.
just said,
Witcher season
yeah,
1.
sure,
Yeah.
exactly. But as you said as well, Chase, how would that actually serve the story? Would it actually make the
Right.
story better? And would it be like this great? Oh, that now makes sense. Whereas in The Witcher, there was all this kind of stuff going on, and then eventually it clicks, and you're kind of going, wait, now I get it. So
Right.
maybe, I mean, if they do it in a really cool way, well then yeah.
Well, they
I mean,
could.
that'd
Like,
be great. But
maybe Halbrand somehow gets sucked up into the sky and then he's shot out in a meteorite, and then you're like, oh,
and then
he's
we
the
see him
stranger.
go.
Do you know, like, there could be
and it
something
all
weird like
goes
that.
back. Right.
Yeah.
Right. That would be pretty
Um,
wild.
Yeah, but that is interesting as well with the actual Silmaril. Well, maybe it's not. Sorry, not the Silmaril. It's the Mithril. I just thought it was funny where Gil-galad is like, we've actually, no, it wasn't Gil-galad, sorry, it was Celebrimbor, and he's like, we actually tested it, and like we've tried everything possible, and the light just doesn't leave. And Elrond's like, so what does that tell me?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah,
is that
yeah,
still supposed to be
yeah.
important? But that was kind of an
And
interesting
also,
conversation.
how have you tested it? Because I just
Sure.
brought you
We
back
put it
the
in a
one
dark
rock.
room.
Yeah, exactly.
Also-
We called it mean names, and it's
Yeah.
just still totally.
also, the
happy.
thing was, Elrond was so adamant about not breaking his oath. I'm not going to break my oath. I'm not going to do it. And then the next thing was like, Celebrimbor was like, thanks for showing me the Mithril. And you're kind of going, you obviously must have broken your oath in order to give that Mithril to Celebrimbor. And then the next scene is him telling, and then I was like, oh no, he has broken his oath. And then it's like, oh no, he hasn't. And he kind of explains.
Yeah,
it.
I was
like,
confused
what's
by
going
that
on?
too.
Like, what is happening?
Also, you're breaking the oath the moment Gil-galad goes, "Did they find Mithril?" And he's like, "I have an oath."
Yeah.
It's just like, yes, that's a big yes, Elrond. Which is again character development. He's got to learn the game. He's not a politician yet.
That's true.
My other issue, while I loved the scene with Durin and I thought it was sweet, I didn't like how Elrond's explanation is so vague, and immediately Durin, who is the most skeptical, cautious, guarded guy, goes,
Yeah.
"Great, let's go for a walk. We better get going." And you're sort of like, whoa. Even if he had said something as simple as, "Explain it all to me on the way," you know what I mean? I want to know more about this, and when we get there, I'll think about it. But the fact that he's immediately just like, "Yeah, let's go talk to my dad," and it's just like, I haven't even told you how much Mithril I need, what I need, and also there was never even a question of like, so you did come all the way there to get Mithril, right?
Especially the way they've built up
that
that character over the last few episodes. That it's like,
yes,
obviously the first time they meet in episode 2, there's this kind of, a lot of tension, and then eventually it seems like they resolve their friendship, and you're kind of going, oh great, they're buddy again. But then immediately, as soon as Elrond discovers the Mithril area, or wherever they're mining in the old mine, Durin comes out. He's like, "Aha! So you did come for the Mithril the whole time." And so it's like immediately he's assuming the worst of Elrond every time he's seen him up until this point. This is the first time he's assuming the
where
best.
he finally has a reason.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Which is funny because he totally has reason to be like, nah. I do love that Gil-galad is the entire time is in the back watching, so he totally heard the bit about the table not being, actually a sacred thing.
did he?
Because at the end of the scene, he's just kind of up there watching them, and I think hilarious that he's just like, God damn it, they people.
My wife's gonna kill
That
me.
was hilarious,
I
by
knew
the
that
way.
wasn't sacred.
That was so funny.
Or he looks back and he just like motions some of those maidens to bring in another table. They put it back. He's like, I got 4 more of these.
Yeah, we kill so many dwarves for these days.
He's
The
like,
one thing
"Tables
I
are a
had,
dime a dozen."
Also,
did you guys pick up on Celebrimbor calling Eärendil mortal in that scene as well, which was kind of strange? He said your father was mortal, like he's half elven, but like
A mortal man, yeah.
He's not a mortal man, is he? He's an elf, right? He's referred to as an elf.
I always thought his mom was the elf, and he was the.
Well,
Isn't that right?
Earendil's father was a man, right? That's Tour.
Idril and Tour.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, Tour.
I always
so
thought
he's the actual mortal, but Earendil is half elven.
Is half and half? Did he not? Oh, yeah, you're right. Oh my god, I'm thinking about that. For some reason I always thought, no, he's the human half of this thing. But you're right. No, he's a half.
He's a half, yeah.
And then his wife is all full.
His
I'm
wife
trying
is
to do
full,
the 23
Wasn't
and me
that
here.
the reason he was? He was. That's the reason he was able to go to the Valor, because he was able to represent both men and elves, because he was half elven.
That's a good point. Yeah.
And and Celebrimbor also says that Elwing begged him to stay, which I don't know if that's true at all, but well, actually it's not true, but like they're kind of, I don't know why they're doing these little lore changes, but look, maybe there's a lot of Earendil name drops, and maybe that will become like more prominent in later seasons, and we'll see why they are slightly changing the lore, because I don't think they're doing it for no good reason at all.
Well, yeah, we'll see.
I love that Celebrimbor gives me some vibes of someone who is a little manipulative, because I love the fact that every time Elrond is kind of on the fence about something, he just slips in a little story about his dad.
Yeah.
And Elrond goes and does what he wants him to do. You know, like
true.
It was
his first time, like by the window, and he's like, "Oh, it's just funny. It made me think of your dad." No, I don't want to talk about it.
Like,
Okay,
hey,
and then,
are you going to eat that last
he's-
chocolate bar? Oh,
he's
because
your
your
friend,
dad
right?
used to always give me chocolate bars.
And so I like the idea of him having some ulterior motives, because also we know his granddad was one who's like, I will do whatever I need to do to get what I want. But then again, Charles Edwards did say in an interview that he's like, this Celebrimbor is ambitious but also naive. And so I'm like, I wonder if, again, look, actors in interviews about secretive shows can say whatever they want to throw us off, you know. But it does seem like because there's something about him that's very not say childlike, but his character is so, you know, he's so enthusiastic about these plans and what he wants to do and all
definitely.
that, and so I don't know if he is, but it is just, you know, this show's great at misdirection. And it does feel sometimes where I'm like, man, am I just overthinking every situation because I just want someone to be Sauron or Anatar or whatever? But
well, I like it's providing the platform for us to overthink or to think the right amount. Like nobody knows how to think, and I can't wait to see how it all wraps up. I have a feeling though that we're really not going to get that many answers or questions answered at the end of season 1. But
I think by the end of season 1 we will 100% know who Sauron is. I don't think we'll know
who the stranger is
for certain. Or where his... First of all, I don't think we'll know for certain what the arc of the stranger will be at the end of this, I think.
No.
Because again, we have 5 seasons, and for the people who are like, I want answers, I want this, I'm like, guys, if they answer everything in the first season, what's going to make you come back for season 2? So I like the idea of them not dragging it out, but...
playing the long game.
Laying some stuff... Totally. But I do think by the end of this season, we will, without a doubt, know who Sauron is, and I think that before the end of this season, we'll have a forge that makes rings.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking, I don't think we'll know who Sauron is. I think at the end of the season, the only wrap-up we'll get will probably be of Adar, either him dying or else him doing something where he's failed his mission, his task, and then he like falls down at the feet of, you know, we see the camera behind some character, we don't know who it is, and he's like, I am sorry, my lord, Sauron, or whatever, and then we just don't get to see. I don't know, I just kind of imagine we won't know exactly who Sauron is, and definitely not who the stranger is. But yeah, that kind of wraps up this episode. If anyone else has any other thoughts on it, speak now or forever hold your peace.
I was going to say, I think in this next episode, or the episode afterwards, Mount Doom, we're getting it.
Yeah.
It's happening.
You reckon?
Oh yeah, I think before episode 8, we'll see it. Whether it's the beginning of it is this next episode or the 7th. It'd probably be the 7th. You want to save the penultimate thing for the season finale, I think, and then use 8 as a resolution episode to sort of like wrap up some stuff. But I think 6 is going to be some good action, and 7 will have some twists, and then 8 I think will be some resolution. That's my theory.
Similar to how Game of Thrones used to do their big thing was episode 9 Yeah.
Battle of the Bastards. Yeah.
Yeah. So before we wrap up, I just have one or two quick things. These will be very short. First of all, I just wanted to ask, why the hell does Numenor not have any military, or doesn't seem to have any military? They seem to have to cobble together volunteers.
Well, it seems like they're just been living in a time of peace for ages. So
I know, but this is Numenor.
I know, but what I think is maybe now that they're starting to go to Middle Earth, they're going to start to trade. They're going to start as far as I said, they're going to start trading with them. They're going to start like kind of taking over. They're going to get tribute from these people, and maybe they might start developing their own army as well. They might see, oh look, if we actually build a strong army, we can go in and eventually take over Middle Earth. So this could be the kind of I don't know, the driving force that pushes them to start developing an army. So again, it's really kind of annoying that we're at this stage and we're kind of saying we only have, I mean, it's 5 seasons, but we're nearly through season 1 already, and we're only just sort of starting to, the wheels are just starting to turn. So I don't know how quickly they're going to be able to develop that army and become these kind of superhuman soldiers, really, because at the moment they just look like the Numenorians are just like normal humans and they're kind of crap. True. So it's like I like want them to be these superhuman, and I think this could be a cool, as I said, a driving force to get them to do that. But I just I really hope that they're able to do that in a good way and be able to develop that army and not make it seem like, I love an all montage, but I don't know if that's the sort of Rocky theme song of them just like running up and down some stairs and training, and suddenly they're these awesome soldiers. But I mean, you never know.
No, I like your answer. You're kind of saying that. I just assumed Numenor right now is at the height of its powers, but you're almost saying that like once they get trading with Middle Earth and this whole plan with Pharazôn goes to plan, I suppose, then they will create like the biggest army and they will be the strongest Numenor that we kind of know them for. Yeah, that's cool. No, you completely make me feel a lot better about that.
Well, again, remember that like the whole story of Numenor is such a long, like, I mean, they're cutting out about 2,000 years of information of what's actually happening. They're trying to like condense it all down into one human lifetime. So I think in this one human lifetime, we're going to have to see this island get to its pinnacle, get to just being like the greatest and the most like a wonder of the world in terms of, well, it already is kind of a wonder of the world, but in terms of the stature of the people, their army, their forces, where they start to consider themselves, we've earned our level playing field with the gods. Why should we not live over in Valinor and things like that as well? So I think it's going to be weird, but they're going to have to try and squash that all down into one life because, as I said, that's just what the time compression means. So we'll see how that plays out.
I have one last little question here. What the hell is in Halbrand's little pouch, his sigil thing? We saw when he dropped on the table, it definitely sounded like there was coins or
currency from all around the world.
Maybe? Oh. Like maybe proto rings. What do you think, Chase? Do you have any theories about this?
Lesser rings.
Yeah.
Lesser rings.
Yeah. I could be lesser rings. Yeah, it could be the gift of Morgoth that he's like, I give you these and you give them out to your lieutenants of my armies, whatever, in the Southlands. I like that. I thought when I first heard it to me sounded just like maybe that little badge that he's got that sigil on there, just like hit or something like that, and there's some metal somewhere on there. But you're right, that pouch was full of something. And yeah, I like the idea of it being proto rings or just something evil. I think is very, very cool. But I didn't even think about that till just now. That's great. Yeah.
It
whatever
definitely
it is, it's not good.
Whatever it is, it seems to be very much front and center to a lot of shots. The camera seems to
the only thing I would say
on it a lot.
The only thing that would maybe go against it being rings is the fact that he almost just left it, like he just so readily kind of gave it up, and then
threw it away,
and then he kind of changed his mind and went back and grabbed it again. So if he has this big, huge, long, well thought out plan that's been in
that's true.
That he's been planning for millennia, he's not going to be like, screw it, I'll just throw these rings away. So but again, it could be a cool little reveal at some point.
Yeah.
Right, yeah, well, I would like to hear any of our listeners' theories and thoughts on what that could possibly be. So if you want to get in touch with us, just shoot us a message or tweet us at Mellon_Heads. Remember, that's Mellon with 2 L's. But yeah, before we finish this episode, Chase, in 2 or 3 sentences, what are your overall thoughts on how the Rings of Power Season 1 is going so far? Do you think it's living up to its potential?
I think this show had so much potential. God, 3 sentences. I think you know what? I think it has surprised me in a lot of ways, and I'm excited with where it's going. I think it's set itself up for success, and it's really going to be about nailing the landing at this point. You've got 3 episodes left, and I hope they use that time wisely. And I think that everything we've seen so far lets me know that these people love Middle Earth just as much as we do.
Yeah, that's great. Well,
Very good.
so you are enjoying it in terms of overall.
I'm having a great time. Totally. Yeah. Like I'm looking forward to next week.
That's great.
You know, Thursdays in the US at 9 p.m. cannot get here soon enough for me.
9
Sweet.
p.m. I'm so jealous.
wish-
I know, it's so nice. California, baby.
We must join with him, Gundam. We must join with Sauron.
All right, well, I think that's all we have time for today on the Council of Elrond. Chase, thank you so much for coming on. It was a blast to have you.
Thank you guys for having me.
Yeah, no,
It was awesome.
seriously, we'll have to have you on again. And
I'd love
for
that.
all the listeners out there, we'll have Chase's links in the description below. But yeah, please, guys, let us know what you thought of the episode and also where it ranks on the list of all 5 episodes. Was it the best? Was it the worst? Does it lie somewhere in between? Also, let us know if we missed anything in our first watch, because I think all of us had just watched it the one time. So, if
Yeah,
there-
I only watched it last night, and then
exactly, if there is anything that we didn't talk to death, let us know. And also, let us know if there's any interesting theories of what's going to happen with different characters, what's going to happen with Adar, what's going to happen with the Stranger, who is Sauron, because that's changing every episode. And also, lastly, a big shout out to all of our Patrons, and a special thank you to Jack Knightley. But yeah, that's all we have today, guys. Chase, thank you so much for coming on, and we'll
course.
see
Thank you, guys.
all of you guys next week.
Cheerio.
Thank you very much.